What happens when your meal plan meets real life? You're stuck. Here's why I teach athletes to think through food decisions instead of just following the rules. Hi, everyone. My name is Percy. They call me P2. I'm a nutrition and fitness coach, and I work with weight class athletes for performance nutrition. And just a quick note. I'm not a registered dietitian or a medical professional, and technically and legally, meal plans are really given by registered dietitians. They absolutely have their place, depends on the context. This particular video is for educational content only. Please proceed with caution and seek professional support if necessary. So, how I see it is that meal plans are rigid. I mentioned that. What makes them rigid and what makes them fail is because they don't take your context into account, which is ever evolving. So your schedule, your training, your preferences, your goals, what may be appropriate for one week may not be appropriate for the following week. They end up creating a dependency because I hear people say, like, just give me a meal plan, I'll follow it. Okay. But you're not really understanding the why behind some of the choices. And this is important because even if you are working with a professional, you're still the decision maker. You're still the one implementing. It's important to recognize the why so you can adjust the how. If something shifts, like you're traveling, your schedule changes, you're sick, life happens. And what we don't want is to get completely stuck, but able to have the opportunity to make better choices and match where we're at. Over the next few minutes, I'm just going to go through some of the steps to consider in order to implement a better approach to food rather than following a rigid meal plan. So step number one, know your context. They say context is king, and I couldn't agree more because we are looking at, of course, fueling, but so many other things when it comes to nutrition and healthy eating. What are we talking about? Are we talking about off season, in season? What sport? What's your background? When are you training? Are you familiar with your hunger cues? How much experience do you have? What do you like? What don't you like? How is your sleep? Where are you perhaps in your menstrual cycle? Are you sick? Do you live alone? Do you live with roommates? Are you a parent? Do you have kids? Do you have dependents? There's so many things involved. And so a plan that's written for someone else's life isn't going to work long term in reality. Even if it's written for you, like we're evolving constantly. And you really have to start honestly assessing your own schedule and your preferences. Step number two, understand your energy needs. We have, our BMR, a basal metabolic rate, which is the base amount of calories that we require to function as humans. That changes for everyone because we all come in different shapes and sizes. On average, 1,300 to 1,700 calories. And then we have our total daily expenditure, like how much we're training or if we're not training, how much we're working or if we're not working. And so our intake is determined by a variety of different variables. So when we want to understand our energy needs, it's like, okay, what do we bare minimum need to function? And then obviously more than that, if we're like working, training, doing our sport, thriving, covering overall, if you are in an off season or if you're in the middle of a training camp, of course, your volume is higher, so your requirements are going to be different. And all of that just to reiterate that your needs, your energy needs, are going to adjust with training phases, seasons, stress, and life demands. For example, being in a caloric deficit when you are in the middle of a camp or whatnot is just not necessarily, it's not aligned. So following as a rigid meal plan that's 1,800 calories that's meant to be for a short-term deficit is not appropriate to implement in the middle of a high training volume or whatnot, for example. Step number three, connect food to function. I've said several times that food is fuel, also emotional, it's social, it's cultural, it's environmental, it's seasonal. There's a lot of components that comes to nutrition. But for this particular point, it's just protein, why? Carbs, why? Where do they fit in? As in the most basic terms, just to sort of recognize their function or their purpose. Of course, there's many of them. When we're talking about protein, giant amount of implications in the body. Okay, cool. They're building blocks, they help recover, and you're more satiated and stay full longer. Great. Carbs. The more I'm training, the more carbs I probably need because they give me immediate energy. Great. Recognizing those two, for example, you understand the why. When you're making those food choices, you're like, okay, I have this training coming up. Have I eaten? No. What am I going to eat? Right. I have some fruit here that's accessible. there's some toast, or for protein, you're looking around, you're like, oh, I'm so hungry. I'm ravenous. And you look back and you're like, have I had sufficient protein? No, I haven't. Action item, I'm going to go add a little bit more carbs before and after training, and I'm going to increase my protein. Excellent. Step number 4, build your decision-making skills. So building on what I just said is now we're taking the function that we understand, like what is a role of protein? What is a role of carbs? What is the role of fat? What does it mean to have calories, micronutrients? And then, okay, using the pre-workout and the post-workout as an example, hey, I'm off to training. I haven't eaten. What would give me energy without stomach issues? Is this the right time for me to eat this giant bowl of chili, or perhaps having a banana on toast? After training, what's going to help me recover for tomorrow? We would need some carbohydrates and protein. So is it, hey, I'm just going to skip it and go get a coffee? Or you know what? I just trained hard, and maybe even if I feel good right now, I know that this changes my recovery for tomorrow. Now I'm going to go put together a full meal that has protein, carbs, and fat. Great. On really busy days when you're running around, what is my best option that is convenient or like quickest that will take me towards the direction of my goals? Is it something I'm going to pick up from this grocery store? Could I prep something real quick? And so when you're asking these questions of what's giving me energy without giving me stomach issues, for example, or what's going to help me recover for tomorrow, or what's the quickest option right now that I can turn to that supports my goals, those types of questions help you have a little bit more like openness. And then you're recognizing, okay, how do I implement it then? Instead of just a direct rule where it's now empowering you to make those choices for yourself. Step number 5, practice food flexibility. So I find this really interesting because when we talk about food flexibility, sometimes there's this built-in defense mechanism. Sometimes the good or bad variable pops up again. Now, having food flexibility doesn't mean to throw the concept of nutrient density, macronutrients, micronutrients, phytonutrients, fiber out the window. It just means being able to look at them and make swaps and decisions. Like, okay, does this have protein and carbs? Cool. What else can I have that also has protein and carbs? And then you can look around and be like, am I prepared? Do I have the skills, or have I had the time? Have I implemented proper grocery shopping, meal planning, cooking, done it on my own? Or are you recognizing where perhaps, hey, you know what? Eating at a restaurant or a takeout or a pre-made food company, home cooking, picking up some convenient options from the grocery store, they all have their place, and it really depends on the context. And what we're trying to do is focus on patterns, focus on that consistency that we can keep up with over perfection. And that's the essential point. So I'm going to share one more step, and then I'm going to have a little personal story. Step number 6, create your own loose guidelines. So instead of rules, we have guidelines, which is parameters to help us make those decisions because they're there for a reason. But it's not like a black or white, but more pushing us along, especially towards the direction. We want aligned guidelines based on your context, your sport, your body, your season, your environment. Develop some guidelines. And some of them can be different. If we're looking at breakfast, maybe you're going to be a steak and egg person, which I highly, highly encourage to start the day with plenty of protein and fat. And maybe you want pancake for dinner. And some of these things too aren't even food rules. They're just understanding. We can get more into marketing and the entire food and restaurant industry. If we zoom out and we look at different cultures, for example, there is plenty of like Asian cultures that have variety of different soups for breakfast. There is some South American culture that has like rice and peas for breakfast. There is a lot of different options to turn to. And so hence recognizing your own environment. And so I am at the moment in Canada. Telling me to start the day with a smoothie in July versus January are very, very different. I was in Thailand last year. So of course, what I have access to walking down the street from my beach apartment to go get fresh mangoes is going to be quite different than in January in Ottawa, Canada, when it's minus 30 degrees Celsius. You're creating your guidelines based on your context, which again is your size, your sport, your preferences, your environment, your budget, what you have access to, and you're making choices that do align. I'm not saying that this is a replacement for just eating Pop-Tarts or candy all day, but maybe that is not a terrible thing, like in the middle of your workout to have gummy bears. It's to recognize that when, hey, how can I maximize my overall healthy eating, overall fuel, overall satiation, overall recovery as someone that is prioritizing my nutrition as part of my life in order to support my training and my living as a human. So essentially, your guidelines should support both your performance and your life. And that's the objective. And I have a personal story to share from when I was on a very rigid meal plan. I've done a lot of these different things. And this definitely brought on it exasperated my disordered eating. It exasperated my dichotomous thinking of the rigidity between black and white, good or bad. And having that food freedom, that food flexibility just gave me a lot more options. And then it just was a lot less, there was less dread, and it was a lot better because my focus was put on other things that essentially just mattered a lot more. And I recall there's chicken and asparagus that I'm supposed to have. And it's like, okay, asparagus can get quite expensive. What are you going to do if you don't have asparagus? Okay, you're going to have another vegetable. Go swap it. Simple enough. But that is one of the reasons that I'm an advocate for teaching how to actually recognize your calories and your macronutrients to make these swaps. It's not just to make nutrient light food that isn't really nourishing like a norm, but is to give you a tool. Like, for example, it's a budget. If you hand someone an exact way that they're supposed to spend their money, according to you, there's no room. Like, you can't necessarily implement anything. That's why we have percentages. And then we create our budgets because maybe we are different phases. Like if we're a teenager or working a career professional job, you're making different incomes, so you have a different budget. And this is also true for our food, that, the main rules don't change, but how you approach it slightly changes from where you're coming from. That was a little rant to go back to this personal story of couldn't necessarily match my meal plan. And then I would just be on a tailspin of anxiety, being like, I'm terrible. I can't follow my meal plan. And then I just had more stress. It just made me really upset. I felt like a failure. And it was simple enough that all I had to do was go swap a vegetable. But when you are looking at it from a perfectionist standpoint and wanting to follow everything to a T, someone like myself who's quite literal, that wasn't that simple. And it cultivated a lot of crap that took me many, many years to unpack. So that's where I'm coming from. Okay, action steps before we wrap it up today. Our action steps, to reiterate, we're going to start with step 1, know your context. Step 2, understand your energy needs. Step 3, connect food to function. Step 4, build your decision-making skills. Step 5, practice food flexibility. And step 6, create your own loose guidelines. Ultimately, what we're wanting to do is have this flexibility with how we approach food so that we can feel and perform and recover and do sports and live life as best as we can. So if you are wondering how to actually implement these steps or what to do about it, that's exactly what I do. Please check out the description box for how to work with me, either one-on-one or through the group cohort. You can sign up on the wait list. In closing, stop following other people's food decisions and start making informed choices. That's essential because we don't know people's background context. We don't know people's background decision-making. We don't know people's background relationship with food, their perceptions. Because your friend did it or your aunt did it, or someone found a meal plan online does not mean that it's appropriate for you. Now, this is, again, to reiterate the disclaimer I said at the beginning, very, very different. If you have a specific health condition and you're working with a registered dietitian, then please follow the plan according to why you're working with a professional in the first place. But this is like obviously a general statement on the internet for the purposes of this video is other people are not you. They don't have your context. And even you as yourself, me as myself, like we go through different phases and intentions, and that evolves with us. So what is really important is to learn how to think for ourselves, not to just follow someone else's plan. That's essentially it. What's your biggest challenge when it comes to making food decisions? Let me know in the comments and subscribe for more athlete nutrition education. Thanks for your attention, everyone. See you next time.